much for tuning in to this week's Metaphysical Meltdown. I am so lucky today to have my friend Kevin Walder with us. He is the Tarot King. So whether you say it tarot, or any other thing that you might want to say, he is the man to go to, and he is going to tell us all about it today. I know nothing about it, nothing. And so I can barely, I couldn't even make a layout, I don't think, because Spirit dumps the information in my head. So that's the way I do it. Everybody's so different, but this is the man, and he's going to explain it. But you know, what I want to say is today is Beltane. So blessed Beltane to all. And I'm so excited because it's a beautiful day here in Tacoma, and I really want to get outside. I've got stuff to do, but I am going outside just to stand and take in the sun. So everybody that is around me, people that come to me for assistance, but also friends and me too, we're all feeling this crazy energy, and it's ramping up like you wouldn't believe. I was watching Game of Thrones the other night, and I felt like the dragon had my face right here, and it lasted for about an hour. Felt like a crown of thorns. It felt like pressure, and it just went away. So I know everybody's having some odd symptoms. However, the thing I want to just touch on for a second is I did a live Facebook, I guess it would be a healing the other night on Saturday. So look it up if you guys haven't seen it. And what was amazing about that is that day, and maybe the day before, I think, I asked for people to let me know who they would like us all to pray for. And I just want to show you that many people, and even more people, including people today, have written to me on, a variety of ways, like everybody else, right? Messenger and text, and called me and talked to me last night. People are having troubles and suffering and being sick and just having heartache. It was a heartbreaker week last week for a lot of people, continuing to this week. So I just want to say, if you've got folks to pray for, please do so. And if you want me to add you to that list, it goes on my altar, and I'm going to be praying for those folks for quite some time now. And so I just like to turn it over to my friend here, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself. So Kevin, let us know all about you.
Oh, well, you don't want to know all about me, but the pertinent facts are.
Right.
Actually, I began my process of spiritual awakening in the early to mid 90s. Things were shifting considerably for me at that point. And I continued through some very difficult times, personally, financially, emotionally, spiritually, pretty much every way possible. In fact, in those days, they used to have a computer term called global. When you changed everything, it was a global change. I went through that. I went through a tremendous upheaval. I mean, my world turned completely upside down. And at that point, I continued to examine and search. And I actually, at that point, I moved to Everett, and I stumbled into a little shop that was called Orion at Twilight. Some people will remember it. It was a little pagan shop, actually. It was devoted to earth religions, and it was a tiny little space, but chock-a-block full of all these absolutely mesmerizing things: books, rocks, everything that turns us on, the spiritual people. And I began to ask questions. I began to talk, and before you know it, I was actually asked to watch the store one day when everybody had other appointments, and they asked me if I would come and sit in. It was at that point I realized I know quite a bit about this stuff that I didn't even recognize I knew. And that's something I talk about a lot, is when you feel like you've absorbed it all, you feel like you have all the knowledge you can acquire on this particular subject, go teach it to someone. And when you're teaching, that's when the real learning happens. Teaching is the best learning platform you will ever get. So I encourage everyone who is called to do so to get out there and teach, because there are a lot of people that need it. So through that time, I took up oil painting. I took up writing. I took up the tarot. A dear friend of mine at that time was into runes. I couldn't make the runes work for me no matter what I did. They fell silent and just laid there. Um, the tarot, however, had such a, oh my goodness, the variety of different decks and the vibrance of the art and the variation of the art, the way that each author or designer sees the energy of that card. I found that to be mesmerizing. It was really interesting to me, and so I began to collect decks until finally, I think it was in 2011, we were about to downsize, and I think I sold 75 decks.
Oh,
I I still have plenty of decks. Don't feel sorry for me. I still got probably about 40, but they're the best ones. They're the ones I wanted to keep. So, but yes, it gets in your blood. I'll warn you now. If you take up a study of the tarot, you will you'll be out shopping
yeah.
quite frequently.
Oh, I think
And
they're so beautiful. I just can't keep track of them though.
yeah,
Do you have the Starman deck?
the Starman deck. Now I don't have that one.
The David Bowie one?
Oh, okay. No, I don't have that one.
Because
No.
that's really cool. I've seen it at
That's
Crescent Moon. Anyway, go
I
on. Sorry.
that's okay. So through all that, now mind you, I said I took up oil painting. I did that in 1993, or yeah, 1993. I did not show a single piece of my work until 2014. It was very personal. And then I started to show my art, which kind of brought me a little bit out of my shell a little bit more. But I started doing readings at about the end of the 90s there. Um, and I started reading for myself, as most of us do, totally confusing myself, as most of us do. But then I was kind of dragged kicking and screaming to an event, and I was told that I was going to read today. And I didn't do anything to encourage anyone. I had a lady come up and sit with me for a reading, and she insisted I was the one out of everyone there. The reading was phenomenal. I mean, my jaw dropped when I realized we were hitting points, every point we made. And that's when I decided, okay, yeah, I can do this. So it became a hobby, and then it has morphed into a business. And you held up my book earlier, so Tarot for Lunch it was born when I was working with Lynn Mahjong at Mahjong's Herbals. I was doing readings there, and she asked if I would teach a class. So I began to put together class materials, and that's what this book really is. It's like a synopsis of my class.
I've met Lynn. She's a lovely person, but I've never been to the store. I've heard it's really nice. It's still open, right? And has been for a while, right?
Yeah, oh yes, she's still going strong.
Good,
It's
good.
it is a neat little store. You would just, I mean, she's an herbalist, and so it's geared in that direction, but she also has her magic corner, she calls
Ah,
it.
but gosh, so you've been doing this for 20 some years then, eh?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I can use your platform to announce my next book. This is my newest one that you haven't seen yet.
I've not, no.
It's
What
called
does the 22 teachers mean?
22 Teachers, the 22 cards of the major arcana.
Okay.
Okay. And the full title is 22 Teachers, Healing Lessons from the Major Arcana.
Okay.
And what I did with it, this was another rework of a class. I went to each individual, and I basically tried to give them a platform from which for you to get to know them on an individual basis. We tend to look at them as being sort of one-dimensional. They have one meaning. This is it. They're not. They're multidimensional, just like you, just like me. So they are they're full of wisdom from every angle. And so that's what I enjoyed doing with this book, the 22 Teachers book, was just inviting them in and say, hey, tell me a little more. In fact, um, I'm sorry, my throat is just bothering me today.
No, that's okay. So let me ask you a really dumb question. It'll make
Okay.
sense to me. Okay. So when someone comes before you, do you have so I've had many tarot readings before in my life, and they've had me touch the cards, and then you lay out a spread. Are you listening to spirit, or are you going by the cards, or a combo of all, or how does it work?
Well, it's a combo of all, actually.
Okay.
In my class, that's one thing I talk about is there are meanings. There's an assigned meaning to the card. That's pretty general. Um, then there's the art, and you don't want to negate the impression and the intuition that what you're getting from the card, just to stick with the meaning that you've been taught.
Mm-hmm.
So I always, the meaning is there, but be sure to keep that intuition turned on because it's picking up information as you're going along.
And
For
isn't
me,
that what makes, I'm so sorry, isn't that what makes an awesome tarot reader separate from someone who maybe is just starting out? Is that I've had many readings who people have said, this card means that, and that's all they tell me. And at the end, when they say, no, when this all goes together, this is what the whole gist of your reading is about. And then people will elaborate. That's what makes an awesome reading, I think, is when you're really plugged into spirit, right? And you're really getting the messages.
right, right. And with everybody's different. Everybody receives their messages differently. Some, well, as you know, all the clairs, the clairaudience, clairsentient, clairvoyant. Um, so you have to get acquainted with your clair. Which
Mm-hmm.
clair are you going to use today? Mine tends to be, and I always say it's like a headline on a
Okay.
newspaper, and it's always in a different font, but it'll often be just one single word. It'll appear up here in the top right, just above my right eye, and I will get this word,
Ah,
and it'll just be just an expression, and that is leading me toward the answer. I Maybe it's just laziness. I've never identified who it is that's delivering the message.
mm-hmm.
I'm just satisfied that I'm getting the message. So I haven't worried too much about, okay, who's my guide? I don't know. I just know that when I'm in that process and in that zone, and that's another part of it, that you have to kind of get into that space. But when I'm there, the messages come through, and it's easy enough to read at that point.
Okay.
So
That is really great. I love it when when you're just in that zone and
mm,
it's firing on all cylinders and people walk away thinking, gosh, that really helped. It just makes you feel so good.
yeah, hopefully they feel the value of it. So
Do you have a favorite deck that you use? Your one that you use more?
yes, I do actually. It's a deck by Cyril Marchetti. I didn't bring it into the office with me. But it's a deck by Cyril Marchetti that is called The Legacy of the Divine Tarot. It's a box set,
Hmm.
which comes with the book and everything, and but the art in it is vivid. The colors they burst, and it is so expressive that I mean, it's almost, you're going to get something from it just by looking at it. You're going to get a feeling for the card, and you're going to kind of get an understanding of it just by being in its presence.
Right.
So I enjoy using that because it's very expressive, and it's a kick in the pants, really. It gets you going.
So even people who are just starting out say so I have a couple decks, don't know what I'm doing, but every once in a while if I'm stuck, I might lay something out. I might just do three because that's all I can keep track of, right? Past, present, future. That'll work for pretty much anybody, won't it? And then they just go look it up and you kind of get your idea, even if it's just that basic.
Yeah, you can start there, and that's where a lot of people start when they're reading for themselves. Using the book and just keeping yourself on a tight leash. Um,
Yes.
I devised, in fact, it is in the book, the Tarot for Lunch. In the back of the book, there's a spread and spreads are another subject. We'll talk
Hmm.
about that more. There's a spread that I don't know if I developed it quite honestly. I could have seen it on the internet somewhere, but it has been in my mind and it stuck with me, and I use it. I use it for myself. It's what I call the no spread spread.
Okay.
Okay, because when well, with the spread, you have assigned meanings to each position. Okay, so the card that's in this position means the past, the card that's here means the present, the card that's here means the future. This card means the influences. Um, so you have to kind of read each card with that in mind. What is it talking about?
Hmm.
The no spread spread is a story. And it's a very simple spread. I'll tell you about it now, but look it up in the book for more backup. The
Okay.
first, you shuffle the cards thoroughly. I usually shuffle them 5 or 6 times, and then split the deck. And then I start from the top, and I will deal until I get the very first major arcana card. And that is my plot to my
Okay.
story. Okay. Next to that, I will deal until I get the very first uh, court card, the royalty,
Hmm.
and that will be the character I'm playing in this story. And then I just lay out the next 7 cards that come up, whatever they are. There's 7 cards in a row, and that's my story. The numeral cards will give you all of the all the background, and then if you have another court card come up, well, that's another aspect of yourself that you need to bring along to this event. If you have other major arcana cards that come up, those are plot twists. That's where things kind of shift, and you move in a different direction. So I use that spread all the time, and it works really well for me. So um, as far as spreads are concerned, I'm not really fond of too many spreads. I like that one because I think I made it up, but I don't know.
Okay.
Um, but the most traditional spread that's out there is the Celtic Cross, where you do your 10 cards.
Yes.
Um, I never have liked it. It is confusing and cumbersome, and it really kind of dances around sometimes rather than gets to the point. So that's where when I came up with this no spread, I did it mostly because when you're doing reading for yourself, it's really hard to get yourself removed from the situation to the point where you can actually see.
It
Um,
is.
yeah,
It
a lot,
is.
you really end up needing to just move yourself out, and then that's where the reading the story. It's just a story. It could be you, it could be anybody, but it's a story. And you can figure out. I mean, it starts to ping. It starts to give you its feedback right away.
Right.
So, and
Absolutely. What was funny is like, gosh, probably 20 years ago, even before I started researching my own, how I was going to open up.
mhm.
I think maybe it just happened, and then I decided. But like 20 years ago, I remember I had a deck. I tried to read for somebody, and I recognized that I cannot keep up. I can't remember what all of this means, right? But yet I was getting information, and I kind of twigged to it. Okay, maybe my way of understanding is going to be different than the cards. Have you used Jeffrey Ozanon St. Rose's cards?
I have played with them a little. I've not used them to do formal reading for anyone else, but I played with them a little. Yeah, they're complicated and complex,
And
but
beautiful.
very interesting. Yes,
I like looking at them and seeing how they make my body feel.
yes.
So that is really fascinating. Can you tell people about your podcast though? I love that stuff. What's going on there?
Well, the podcast actually is a year old as of April 2018. And I actually started the info that's here in this book was originally on the podcast.
Okay.
Okay, so you can hear it. The audio version is out there. I did 34 episodes. And you can pick them up pretty much anywhere that you get podcasts. I mean, that's iTunes, Spotify, um, Google Play. They're also on YouTube.
Okay.
So you have lots of options wherever your favorite place. Most people who do podcasts have a spot they go to grab them. So, and there are more coming up all the time, or more outlets that are coming up all the time. So I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. I kind of hit a little bit of a wall, and I've taken a little hiatus from it, from that part of it, because I've got so many other things going on, including getting this book together, which was a nightmare because I happened to put this book together right when everything was changing at Amazon. And so it took a while to get it where I wanted it. So, um, but yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Where do people find your book?
You know what? It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's always on Amazon. The easiest way is just go directly to Amazon, and in the search bar, just type my name, Kevin Walder, and it'll bring up everything. There are 3 books in there now. So,
Okay.
but that one's the latest. I do not have the Kindle version yet. I'm still working on that, but the paperback is up. So, there was something else I was going to say in there. Oh, and then as the podcast, as I kind of got to the end, just lately, am I jumping the gun? Talk about what I'm doing with the meetings?
I'd love to have you tell people about that.
Okay.
It's all you, dude, today. All you.
Okay. Well, in years past, we used to attend Angel Network meetings at the Denny's in South Everett. Dakara Keys did a great job of putting that together, and it was always fun. It was always worth the trip. But we live in Stanwood. It's a long trip, and at the end of the day, it's kind of like, and fortunately for us, we weren't commuting anymore. But for those that are, I mean, it's like, do you want to turn around and get back on the freeway? So I kind of had this idea: why can't we meet? Just like you and I are meeting right now, why can't we meet like that as a group? So I've put together a Zoom group, so that we can have we can see each other, we can talk to each other. Everybody has an opportunity to present. They can also just watch if they want. That's not a problem. But it's the third Wednesday of every month at this point, third Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. So coming up on May 15th. And Missy Milne and I were going to be doing a program that night on how do we get our spark back when our creativity hits a wall, is what I said. When our creativity hits a wall, how do we get that? How do we turn it around?
Okay.
So, and that'll be, I certainly don't have all the answers, and I don't think she does either. So we'll be asking other people to help us out with, some of their experiences and things that work for them. So,
well, between the two of you, I think that's going to be great. She's a very creative person. And actually, instead of ever going to the Tarot, I just look it up in Missy. If I've got a problem, I call Missy. Seriously, I do. Would love to have her on one of my podcasts. And so you got her first. I'm not sure how you got her first. I don't know how that happened.
We've been family for a long time.
I know. You guys have been together longer than we have. But so what other things have you guys been talking about, though? Because I'd like to join that if I can.
You absolutely. It's wide open. So yeah, I'll make sure you get. If I didn't send you an invitation already, I will make sure you get one. Last time we talked about our favorite metaphysical tool, our favorite spiritual tools. A lot of times we end up working with divination tools, but if you think about it, metaphysical tools and spiritual tools can be anything. If you're a gardener, it may be your favorite spatula, or your favorite shovel, or your favorite, it may be, it could be anything that is a tool that helps you ascend.
Okay.
And I mean, I look at my husband; he's a baker. Um, so the tools that he uses in that profession, those could be spiritual tools too, because he's very tied into that. That's an expression of his spirituality.
Right.
So, and that's, boy, now that I just came up with that, how every single thing we do can be an expression of our spirituality, and it should be. And if it isn't, we have work to do. So,
You are so right. The other day I had someone come to me and that I was unable to use any of my tools with because of her belief system. And so I had to be an absolute pure channel for spirit.
mhm.
And I think it was a great lesson because, I've been using a pendulum for, 15 years or so, use it all the time, always have it in my hand because I read energy all the time. But just to be open to hear what the Holy Ones have to say and spit it out as a pure psychic, that's pretty fun. It was pretty interesting. And
It
people are knowing that that's such a possibility now.
Sure. Well, and the thing, it's like anything that you get used to, any crutch or any kind of thing that helps you along, and you feel like you can't live without it until you're forced to live without it, and then all of a sudden, yeah, yeah.
Chopped
So,
up unicorns in here.
is that,
Nah, it's just shungite and copper, but it really feels good to hold on to it.
yeah, yeah. Well, the copper is excellent anyway. That's a tactical thing. So.
It really is. But so where do people find you? Do you do most of your readings over the phone or Skype, or how do you do them?
Actually, I'm doing yeah, most of the time they're video calls or phone. I like the video calls because it gives you an opportunity to kind of see. I get a lot of feedback without my querent ever realizing they're giving it to me. Just watching expressions, and you can kind of see, where they are, where the question really is. Oh, and that's another thing I love to talk about is, when it comes to the tarot, I have a theory that going to the tarot for answers is perhaps not the best use of it. Going to the tarot to help improve your question is a better use for it. Because if you ask a question, like, okay, you ask a question about the last episode of Game of Thrones, you get the answer and you close the book, you go on about your day, and that's it. You've got the answer.
I want to know about the last episode of Game of Thrones.
No, I can't help you. I don't watch it.
I didn't know you had that. So
So,
you're just saying that it makes you understand so very much more about what you've got going on than just your question. I believe that to be true. That's why I have people not talk to me. I like to have the guide speak rather than the person in front of me because really they just know one thing. Am I going to get a date on Friday night? Well, once the spirits start speaking, it might be a lot different, right?
exactly. Well, and it's like I always say that when you're doing this work, it's like going to the internet with a question. You'll find your answer, but oh my God, you're going to find a whole bunch of other stuff on there too that's just going to
Yeah.
deluge you with all kinds of information that you didn't ask for. So, you have to kind of weed through what's pertinent to the situation. So, yeah, I've always said that, use the tarot to improve your question because it keeps you engaged. If you just, close the book and walk away, well, you're no longer engaged in that situation anymore. And the just using it as a way to improve your question, to give you a different perspective, is much more effective. It keeps you involved. So
So do you I know you guys used to be involved in some of the fairs and stuff. Do you do any of that now?
we have kind of backed away from the fairs a bit for a while. mostly physical. We're just not able to do them as easily as we used to do them. We're getting old. I don't want to admit it, but it's true. Um, but yeah, we used to do mystical winds fairs. In fact, we ran those fairs for about 3 years. Had the, I mean, it was okay. Running a fair is like golf. It's the most frustrating thing you will ever do twice. You understand what I'm
Well,
saying?
that's a lot of creative people you have to herd. Yeah.
Exactly. And the term herding cats is very, and it's not, we got along fine with it, but it is difficult. It's challenging
Mhm.
to put strong people together and hope they mesh.
Yeah.
And they most of the time they do. We had only a couple of incidents where they just were not going to mesh, and we ended up having to move people around a little bit to make peaceful transitions.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's a but it was the most fun we ever had as well. I mean, it was very rewarding, and that's why I say it's like golf. It's you'll do it again, you'll do it over and over again. It's still going to be frustrating, but you'll keep doing it. So
Right. It's hard to, it's plus for me, I like to do those fairs every once in a while because then I get to see all my buddies,
yeah.
Since we moved south, harder to see those north end people. But the question I want to ask you here is have you ever just done some Facebook lives where you pull for people that might just pop on?
I have not done that. I've watched you, and I've watched Sheila Baker, and there's a couple of others. I've tuned in when people were doing it. I've been tempted, but I've got a face made for radio, so I try.
That is
I try.
not true. That is not true. No, no, because you have a really loving heart. And when we get offline here too, I have a message from my guide to you when I was doing channeling right before we got together.
Oh,
So you don't though. You have a really loving presence, and I think if you did that, people would love it because folks right now need help. People
they
need
do.
help.
They
So
do.
even though I have to go lie down right after that, right after I
Hmm.
do those. It's really important, I think, to do it. And I think Spirit would love you to spread your love and peaceful way of being out there.
Well, all right.
And I have one
I,
last
I
question too. If
okay.
somebody was going to start out uh, learning about doing this type of thing, what deck would you say to pick? What's the basic, really awesome one to pick?
Well, one of my very faves for a beginning person is the Robin Wood deck. For a number of reasons. It follows the Rider-Waite system impeccably. It's very colorful. It's very expressive. You'll notice that some decks they're quite lavish in their decoration of the major arcana, and then when you get to the minors, they're kind of blah. This deck is colorful and expressive all the way through. Um, the other reason that I like it is it's readily available everywhere. it's
Okay.
uh, it's a very common and has been a very popular deck over the years. Um, in fact, sometimes, depending on how you feel about such things, you can even find them at half price books.
Oh, cool.
Um, Now, some people have an issue with using a deck that has been in someone else's hands. Um, that's another subject. I'm real careful about the power I give anything,
Hmm.
whether it's a deck or a pendulum or a spirit board or anything like that. Um, I don't give them any more power than they deserve. I assume that it's coming from me, and these are just tools to help me get there. And so yeah, when it comes to the deck, if I want to cleanse my deck, I shuffle it about 10 times.
Okay.
Okay, all that movement kind of disperses whatever might be attached to it and brings it back to a neutral state. I don't go through elaborate processes, and that's a personal thing. If it's meaningful to you, then by all means do it. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just,
Mhm.
is it absolutely necessary? No, you don't have to.
Okay, so I wasn't going to ask you this, but it brings up the question. What do you think about the whole Doreen Virtue thing
Oh my God.
in
Well, we've
left?
only got a few more minutes here. I'm not sure there's long enough. Um, I am I am so disgusted by it, to be quite honest. I find it because, well, first of all, I guess have to put my position in perspective. I came from a tyrannical, uh, fundamentalist Christian background that, if you don't believe it, will beat you until you do,
Oh God.
and that sort of thing. Um, so I have Christianity does not say peace to me. Christianity is oppression, just like all so many other religions are. I find religion it's a fear-based control system, and I don't really see much difference between any of them. So for her to completely ditch the work that she did, which I didn't resonate with her work in the first place. So it wasn't totally disappointing to me from that standpoint. I hadn't invested. Um, but when I saw the initial video that she put out where she talked about her conversion and whatever, um, it was like, oh, I, when you stop listening to your own guidance to opt for something that's in, I don't care what ancient book you choose, um, you're missing the point. You are the divine person. You are the divine one that needs to direct. And if you're not capable of directing, then find someone who is able to help you in that pursuit. Um, don't turn it over to someone else. Don't just abdicate your responsibilities. And that's what I see this as. It's like a total walk away from any responsibility in the regards to the spiritual aspects, and just accept what's being told. And I don't do that. I started questioning when I was a very young man, and I continue to question today. In fact, that's one thing I tell my clients over and over again: question everything, especially those things that you absolutely know for sure.
Yes, absolutely. I think what the last thing I read was her Easter post, where she said, "Make sure everybody throws away their decks and their gosh, don't quote me on this, but it was something like their your tools that you use." And I thought, gosh, I really hate to read that on Easter. There's Easter was a beautiful day for energy.
Mhm.
And a guy that I work with now a lot is Master Jesus. Never have worked with him that closely. And I just thought, oh my gosh, not on Easter. Please don't say that. However, if she wants to give her rocks away, she can give them to me. But I'm just saying, I don't know where that's going. I'm sending her a whole lot of just, positiveness, I guess, good thoughts, I guess, to her. And I'm in the same boat. I believe that you need to look within, obviously, look right within, because uh, my belief certainly is there are those that are out there to help us, but it's really about our understanding of how we're going to go forward right now, especially now.
Yes.
So I want to thank you so very much for being with me today. And could you spell your last name? It's a little different. And how do people find you?
Okay. The last name is Walder, Walder.
Okay.
Um, there's a long story attached to that one too. I have my website, which is kevinwalder.com. No spaces, all lowercase, just kevinwalder.com. It's simple, easy, get there. It lays out pretty much the things that I offer. Um, my email is Kevin_Walder at me.com. And yeah, that's about it for of course, we're on Facebook with the Oracle Scroll, which is our podcast page. Tarot by Kevin Walder is another page I have on Facebook, and then of course my personal page, but you don't want to see that.
Actually, people do, because your husband has these beautiful dishes of food that they make all the time. I'm just
Well,
saying, I watch that. I'm still thinking about those Brussels sprouts from Thanksgiving. But and everybody, really, I don't know all my guests. I just happen to know some of them. So thanks everybody for watching this episode. We will have a few more episodes until I slow it down to do my next thing, which I haven't talked about quite yet. If you need me, I am marybeckmanpsychic.com. I hope that's it. You can find me on Facebook. You just think about me, I'll think about you. It'll all work out. So love to you, everybody. Blessings on this beautiful day of Beltane. Thank you so much, everybody.